Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to The Upside. I'm Jonathan Oliski with JMore, and our show today is about to begin. I'd like to introduce our two wonderful co-hosts, Beth Goldsmith, Chair of the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore, and Dr. Scott Rifkin, publisher of JMore. Beth and Scott, take it away.
I can't hear Beth.
Well, sometimes during live Zoom, things happen, and so we're going to get Beth unmuted.
I'm here now. I'm
Now
sorry.
there you go.
It was out of my control. I promise you. I knew I was on mute, but I'm not sure who in the control room was playing a little trick. But here I am. So thank you, Jonathan, and welcome again to all our viewers to our virtual show brought to you by the Associated Jewish Federation of Baltimore and JMore Magazine to keep Jewish Baltimore informed during these times of uncertainty. As we all know, this coronavirus pandemic has placed major strains on our community, resulting in increased food insecurity, social isolation, education inequities, and much more. Yet, even in this time of social distancing, there are safe ways to address these needs by the simple act of volunteering. Not only does volunteering help us make a difference in someone else's life, but many studies have shown that a strong sense of purpose protects us from stress in the short term and even provides long-term health benefits. Today, we're fortunate to have Ashley Pressman from Jewish Volunteer Connection on our show to talk about making a difference. Scott, please do the introductions.
My pleasure. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Good. Thank you for inviting me today.
We're glad you're here. So Ashley's been with, and stop me if I get any of this wrong, with Jewish Volunteer Connection since 2004 and took over the boss as the boss in 2011 and has won a bunch of honors. But tell us about the organization. Tell us about what your group does.
Sure. So Jewish Volunteer Connection, JVC, our mission is to engage volunteers to meet vital community needs and live with purpose through meaningful service. So essentially our mission has three different parts. We engage volunteers. We want more people volunteering more often, meeting more needs in the community. We meet vital community needs. That means that we're really led by the needs of our partner organizations, of the nonprofits and schools that we work with, who tell us how we can best serve them and who invite us in. And we encourage people to live with purpose through meaningful service, is that we really see volunteerism as a transformative act of community building. And we know, as Beth said, volunteering can be as beneficial to the volunteer as it is to the service recipient. And we also know that service helps to challenge people's beliefs and helps people to grow in their knowledge, their awareness of the world around them.
Very good. So you hit on something really interesting, and then I'll turn it over to Beth some more questions. But you mentioned that the volunteering might be more important for the volunteer than for those receiving the services. And that is so true. And I'd love you to comment a little bit more on that.
Sure. So we know that volunteerism can be a transformative experience for the volunteer. And our hope is that it is as important, maybe not more important, but as important to the volunteer as it is to the service recipient. And what that means is that volunteering can help to reduce isolation for people who are experiencing it, especially right now. Volunteerism can help you have a sense of control in a world where we often feel out of control. We often feel helpless against the forces that are buffeting us right now. And volunteering can help people feel more in control. And also volunteering helps people to grow and be challenged and to think hard about both what they're doing and also the why of it and where needs come from, and helps people to come into relationship with other people. So that's another benefit that it has, both to the service recipients and also to the volunteers.
So I have to tell the story of my grandmother. My grandmother, who has since passed away, but she, in her 80s, mid 80s, became a volunteer at the Waxter Center downtown. Mm-hmm. She would get on a bus, she would transfer on the bus, she would take another bus, and she would go to the Waxter Center, where she volunteered helping the old people, is the way she put it. It was great. It was the biggest activity in her life, and it gave her real meaning at the time. It was really a very neat thing to see. So your point is really well taken. Beth, I know you got a list of questions.
Thanks, Scott. And Ashley, I'm so happy that you're here. Yeah, so I want to start. You've been talking, or you mentioned in your opening, Live with Purpose. And I know that was created just a few years ago as a low barrier approach to volunteering. Would you tell us a little bit more about the program and how it has impacted our community? And is there anything new we need to know?
Sure. So live with purpose are actually JVC's 3 favorite words because, and it has multiple meanings. We, as a mantra for all of the work that we do, we want people to live with purpose in all that they do. And as a program, what Live with Purpose means, it refers to our indirect service opportunities. So these are ways that people can volunteer by making things that will then be donated to service recipients. So this is volunteering that you can do in your own home. You could do it back when we all used to go to offices to work. It's something people could do in their offices and sports teams and birthday parties and all of the ways that people used to gather, and we'll be able to gather someday soon again. You could also incorporate service by doing Live with Purpose in those environments. And today, when we are so much more homebound than we used to be and still looking to add meaning and purpose to our lives, Live with Purpose or indirect service opportunities are a great way to do that. And on our website, jvcbaltimore.org/livewithpurpose, you can actually find a link to a number of volunteer opportunities. We have a different project we sponsor every month, where now that we are able to get back into our building, and the JCC has been a great partner for us, our offices are at the Park Heights JCC. Now that we are able to access our building on a regular basis again, we can put together program supplies. So if you want to do this month's Live with Purpose project, which is soup kits, then you contact JVC, you register on our website, you pay a nominal fee of $18, and we will provide you with all the supplies that you would need to make soup kits, which are all of the ingredients. The volunteers will package up all the ingredients that someone would need to make a healthy, hearty soup for which makes 4 servings. So, and we've already had 1,000 soup kits made or collected for the month of September, which means 4,000 meals have been provided by volunteers just in this month, just through that Live with Purpose program. And we've got a different thing going on every month. So, and one exciting thing actually I want to mention about our Live with Purpose program is for the first time this year, we're offering a subscription service. So if you are interested in doing these kinds of volunteer projects, a different project every month for $180 on our website, you can register, and then every month for the entire 12 months from September through next August, you will get the program supplies that you need to do the different projects that we're doing every month. So that's at jvcbaltimore.org/LWP subscription.
Good job. So,
yeah, awesome. I love it. I love it.
Beth, do you have another question, or do you want me to jump in?
Well, no, I just wanted to add on that the great thing about Live with Purpose and doing it in your own home is it's a great way to involve your children. And since so many people have their children home and are looking for things to do with them, it couldn't be a better time for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the projects, often there are projects that are a little bit more conducive or a little bit less conducive to kids participating. But generally everything that we do, there are ways for children to be able to participate. And every service project comes with a learning guide, a page that's focused on families and a page that's focused more for adults, that helps people to understand the context in which they're serving.
So tell us about a few more of the programs. Tay, this is your chance to market every one of those programs for volunteers. We get a couple of thousand people who look at this every week.
Wonderful.
So, and they're all homebound right now. So,
homebound right now. So I'll tell you
more of the projects you all are working on.
Sure. So I can talk a little bit more about Live with Purpose and indirect service, but I also want to mention that a good portion of what we do is also direct service, is helping volunteers to find opportunities out in the community. One of the absolutely most inspiring things to me about the pandemic and the response of the community with JVC in the pandemic were the number of people that stepped up to volunteer out of their homes from March through today. We've had 366 people who have volunteered either direct service or virtual volunteering, but new volunteers who've taken on an ongoing commitment to service. And what's really been incredible is in the early days of the pandemic, we had organizations that lost their entire volunteer corps because their volunteer corps were largely people at high risk and who had to step back from volunteering. And how quickly the Jewish community through JVC and the broader community stepped in to fill those roles and make sure that the Meals on Wheels got delivered, and all of those really critical needs where volunteers still had to serve got met. So that's another thing that you can do with JVC is if you're interested in volunteering, we've got a search portal on our website, and we're constantly looking for new volunteers to do that. Another thing that we do, that we used to do 4 times a year, JVC has our big annual days of service where we would gather 1,000 people in 1 or 2 big spaces, and we would do all sorts of indirect service together, and we would send people to 20 different sites around the community, and they would volunteer in lots of different ways. And since we can do very little of that right now, we can't gather 1,000 people in any place as much as we'd love to. Right now, we've rethought all of our days of service, and we've got one going on right now called the Season of Service. The time from the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the week before Rosh Hashanah, through the end of Sukkot is a season of service. It is a time for people to really be reflecting on, what we want this new year to be like as we are entering 5781, and what we want, how we want to live our lives. We've got lots of opportunities to volunteer and also to learn. So we've got some programs coming up. We've got speakers from Mazon who are going to be talking about food insecurity. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got indirect service projects, things you can do in your own home. We've got direct service opportunities. So there's just a little bit of something for everybody. And we still want that communal feel of 1,000 people coming together to volunteer, just together apart. That's the theme of the day.
And nonprofit organizations can call you to look for volunteers. So talk about that.
Sure. So we work with about between 85 and 90 different nonprofit organizations and public schools, including all of the associated agencies that use volunteers. They all work with us. And we have a vetting process. We work with an organization to understand their needs a little bit better, to understand how they work with volunteers, and during these times to understand how they're going to work with volunteers in ways that feel comfortable with physical distancing, gathering requirements, food safety kinds of things, just making sure that they follow protocols that we're comfortable with and that are following state guidelines. And we really work with them to understand how they work with volunteers, so that when a volunteer comes to our website and sees an opportunity on a search portal, they can know that this is an organization that we've worked with, we've vetted, and we can feel really confident that when they reach out that it's going to be a good fit and a good match. So we work with organizations across the spectrum, organizations that focus on education, food justice, environmental sustainability, animal rights, taking care of animals, and a lot of organizations that do emergency sheltering, transitional housing, addiction treatment, those kinds of things. And we work across the Jewish community as well as the secular community all throughout Baltimore City and Baltimore County.
And tell us a little more, please, Ashley, about the Jewish component. How are we different?
Sure. So volunteering is just an inherent part, I think, of understanding Jewish values and our Jewish identities. And it's a way that a lot of people today reflect their Jewish values, and where people are less and less, I think, institutionally affiliated and less understanding kind of their Judaism through institutional walls. We are seeing more and more people define Judaism through the lens of tikkun olam, through the lens of chesed, of acts of loving kindness. And so we want to lean into that at JVC. We want to make sure that every volunteer experience also has a Jewish lens and a Jewish component. And I think we have an understanding as an organization that the board of JVC has spent time thinking about what are the Jewish components of the work that we do, the idea of a communal responsibility of Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh Bazeh. All of Israel is responsible for one another. And by extension, all of us are responsible for all of the world, and all of the world is responsible for each other and for us. So that idea of communal responsibility, and also the idea of that you just don't walk away when you see somebody in need, that you find a way to make a difference, you find a way to help people. So all of that becomes, I think, part of the Jewish lens. And, one of the things that I think we're really trying to do at JVC is to complicate the thinking a little bit around tzedakah, around, what does it mean to have a word that means charity and and the root word is justice, and what is the intersection there, and how do we struggle with that? That's not me, that's Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs had said that, the idea of tzedakah being this sort of untranslatable word. And helping people to really think about how to understand their Judaism at a deeper level than just tikkun olam or just the idea of chesed. But what does Judaism really have to say about food justice, about literacy, about education, about environmental sustainability? And, I think there is so much that we're able to engage people to deepen their understanding of Judaism and Jewish values through the act of service and the service learning that we're really striving to build.
Hey, Ashley, so I have a follow-up question from one of our audience members today. So, and this is perfect to what you just spoke to. So Kenny on Facebook would like to know, what's the best way to get one's synagogue involved in JVC? How do you partner with our local congregations?
Absolutely. So the best way is to contact JVC. We actually have a member of our staff, Abigail Malashostak, whose whole job is working with community organizations like synagogues, day schools, camps, leadership programs, to help them think about how service can be a meaningful and integrated part of the way that they engage with the community around them. And about 50% of all of the work that we do, we look at acts of service, which is an individual act of volunteering by one person at one unique point in time. That's how we measure it. About 50% of all of our volunteer opportunities are connected in some way to a community partner that is sponsoring them and engaging their members or their participants in them. So contact JVC. You can, well, I was going to say you can call us, but email us, jvcbaltimore@associated.org. And we will get you connected to Abigail, and she can, she works with lots of about 40 different organizations in the community and customizes the right service opportunities for their identity and what they're trying to accomplish, and also for the world that we live in right now in the pandemic, what that looks like.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Beth, you look like you get a tip of your...
I guess I'd like to know, and I think our viewers would probably be interested too, Ashley, are there new needs today? It would seem that there are. Are there new things you've had to invent to service this community during these times?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes and yes. There are new needs, and in addition to new needs, there are significant increases in existing needs, right? Food insecurity has always been an issue. It has been an issue in Baltimore forever. And we've always had different ways of helping people with food insecurity. And at the same time, we know that need has gone up significantly in the last 6 months and 7 months. And so we have also taken the opportunity to both create and also repurpose opportunities, volunteer opportunities. The best example of that is something called Bunches of Lunches. So Bunches of Lunches is something we've done for 10 years in a partnership with Krieger Schechter Day School, where once a month the students in the school would come home with a brown bag. They would pack an extra lunch the next day. They would bring it in, and the lunches would be donated to one of our community shelter partners or one of our Weinberg buildings, actually. So that was a great program, and the kids love to do it. They would decorate the bags, write nice messages on the bags. It's also really important. And so in the pandemic, when we were looking and seeing the need for food just exploding and thinking, how could we make a difference? We thought, well, what if we put Bunches of Lunches out to the community? And Krieger Schechter came on board and said, we can be the drop-off point. And we figured we'll get like 250 meals. We'll do it once. We'll see how it goes. So that first week, this was in late April, we had almost 1,900 meals donated. We had people showing up with 50 meals, with 100 meals. And it was just incredible to see the generosity of the community. And so when you see that, you don't say, maybe we'll do it again in the future. You say, maybe we'll do it again next week. So we've been doing it actually every week with the distribution, the drop-off points at Krieger Schechter, Chizuk, and at Bethel and Beth Tefillah, alternating weeks. We've now volunteers have donated close to 20,000. We expect to hit 20,000 meals this week in 22 weeks. So close to 1,000 meals are being donated every single week. And organizations have absolutely become reliant on that and have told us that their clients now really count on that, which is an absolutely, you talk about the Jewish values, right? The sacred obligation of knowing that people are depending on the food that your organization is helping people to provide, and to know as our volunteers, we're so grateful to the volunteers who are making sure that we meet that commitment week after week after week, and also making sure that those bags are donated and have messages on them that really support people. So that's an example of where the need is not new. Unfortunately, the need is not new, but the need just got huge, and we're coming up with new and innovative ways of dealing with it. We are also, I think, seeing some new needs, right? The amount of isolation that we're seeing, again, not totally a new thing, but the amount of isolation where we're having friendly callers, getting involved with different programs in the city and the county, notes, just supportive notes, the fact that nursing homes and assisted living facilities are really locked down right now, that people can't even go in and see their relatives. So being able to send notes and be able to send cards and figure out other ways that we can engage with the folks there who are very, very isolated, and thank you notes to first responders, to people who are frontline workers, you know, whether it's people in the hospital or people in the grocery store, just making sure that we say thank you and help raise the awareness of volunteers to say thank you to people who are really putting their lives on the line every day.
Yeah. Let me comment one thing on the nursing home piece, just because I have some background there. For those that are listening, the nursing homes are going to open a little bit in the near future. There's a move at the federal level and at most of the state levels to start allowing some very careful, very socially careful, distant careful visitation in nursing homes. So people are starting to free that up a little bit. Yeah. So that may be a nice thing for the folks who live in nursing homes. But let me jump back to the food security issue. Are we making a dent? Are we, you know, how well are we addressing that need?
Yeah. So that is one of the most fundamental questions I think that JVC asks, and that has led us actually this summer as an organization with our board to develop our statement on racial justice, which is a statement that really looks at that question of what is the intersection of volunteer engagement and systemic needs, systemic inequality. You know, are we making a dent? For individuals, we are making a dent. For individuals, we are lightening a burden. And we are the ability of an organization and an individual to count on knowing that the food is coming on a regular basis. That makes a difference for an individual, absolutely. Does it make a difference in the overall issue of food insecurity in Baltimore, the systemic causes of that, the income inequity and unemployment and all of the historic unpacking of the things that have caused food insecurity to be a major issue in Baltimore? Unfortunately, hands-on volunteerism doesn't really work at that level, doesn't really operate at that level. And what we really want to make sure volunteers understand, and we are taking on the responsibility, is that we want volunteers to understand that to work at a systemic level, you need to work at the systemic level. And that is not necessarily at the hands-on level. That is the level at which BJC is working. So we want volunteers to understand that both things are really critical and important. If we weren't making those meals, people would be hungry. People would be starving. This is work that saves lives. This is work that really makes a critical and urgent difference every day and must continue. And we also know that there is other work that needs to be done to reduce the need overall through more systemic changes in our society.
Yeah, and the other thing that I used to see when I was a practicing physician was there are people out there who aren't getting food and they're not telling anybody. They're proud, they're embarrassed, they're whatever the issue is. And there are kids that go to sleep at night without food in this community that don't need to, because there are folks like yourselves that would get them food. Mm-hmm. So the more we can spread the word on how they can reach out and get access to those opportunities, the better. But there really is a pride and embarrassment issue that ties into this.
Yeah. And I'll actually add, in addition to that, there are also opportunities to help more anonymously. We have, in the neighborhood I live in, we have something called a food pantry, which is a similar size box to the little free library, if you've ever heard of one, where people put books in, and if you want a book, you take a book, and if you have a book you're done with, you drop it in there. The free pantry is set up similarly in that people are putting non-perishable foods in there, and people who need the food will take the food. And so that's something that people can put up. You can put it up in your own yard. You can get permission to put it up in a public park, something like that. And it becomes actually an anonymous way for people to get food when they need it, that just to supplement whatever they have in their home. So because that piece around the pride of not being willing to say, or being, saying, well, we can get by, I don't really need to ask for help, someone is worse off than me, or I'm just not willing to step forward and say that I'm the person in need. We want to make it as safe as possible for people to do that, to access, public resources and access all of the formidable resources of our community and our system and our country. And to say, look, if you're not there yet, there are other options. So that's something, it's on our website, jvcbaltimore.org/COVID-19. There's actually a link to the Little Free Pantry website where you can see how to build one of those.
Very good.
Ashley, Scott mentioned in introducing you how long your tenure has been at the Associated, and I know how dramatically JVC has actually changed under your leadership, from a simple little volunteer thing on occasion, loosely organized, I will say, to the wonder that it is now. Would you talk a little bit about the Associated's agenda and how you see this being so important to it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to give a lot of credit to Mark Terrell. I started around the same time that Mark came back to Baltimore, just a year or so, I think, after. And volunteerism has always been on Mark's agenda. And it has always been, he has always recognized the power of volunteerism to make a difference in community and to build community and to bring community together, to bring people into relationship with each other, and also to connect people with their Jewish identities and their sense of Jewish self. So we've always had tremendous support from the Associated leadership and from Mark. And I will also give kudos to my predecessor, Leslie Pomerantz, who helped to build JVC, and I was the assistant director under Leslie's leadership as we grew from being an organization that focused a lot on volunteer placement to being an organization that sort of Field of Dreams style, if you build it, they will come. The more programming that we do, the more low barrier service that we do, the more people will be able to opt in, and the more people will be able to prioritize service in their lives. What I think we've done under my leadership, our big accomplishment, I think, has been to rethink service and to say we're not just programmatic. It's not just low barrier volunteering. That when we are really conscious of the way that we work, we are also able to help people build a commitment over time. We have a philosophy now at JVC where we say, that people commit to things they care about, people care about things they're involved in, and people get involved in things that are accessible to them. So we build JVC from low barrier, accessible volunteering, our big days of service, our live with purpose and direct service opportunities. And as people begin to understand and care more, and as they begin to prioritize service with other things and in addition to other things and over other things, that there are other opportunities to go deeper and to learn and to do service together. We have groups of volunteers doing service together. That's something we're kind of reconstituting now in a pandemic world. But prior to the pandemic, we had 30 different groups volunteering over 150 times a year. That they were doing that on their own with support from Erica Bloom in our office, where we had volunteer leaders, and we really put volunteers in the driver's seat of their volunteer experience and empowered folks to be connectors. So I think that leadership empowerment of getting people to own the volunteer experience has been a huge part. And now I would say as we move forward, our biggest focus is on going deeper. And our biggest focus is as we continue to grow broader, going deeper and making sure that people do understand the context in which they're serving, how it connects to their Jewish identities, how it connects to issues of racial injustice, issues of systemic inequality, and being able to really start to connect those dots.
Okay, so if somebody wants to reach out to you to be a volunteer or to access some of the services of the volunteers that you're involved with, talk about how they contact and how they work with you.
Absolutely. If somebody wants to volunteer, I will encourage them to go to our website, jvcbaltimore.org. And from that, you can navigate to our Live with Purpose opportunities, to our season of service that's going on right now, and to many other opportunities, to our search portals. You can find those ongoing volunteer opportunities. So that's a great way. And you can also email us off of that website. You can email us and we'll be in touch with you and find the right fit. If somebody is in need of the services of a volunteer, we actually will encourage them to go to one of our nonprofit partners, depending on what their need is. We don't place volunteers directly with clients to do services because we understand that often the person who is requesting the services of a volunteer has complex needs that we're really unprepared to understand or respond to. So we're most of the time going to direct them to Jewish Community Services to kind of get a handle on what their needs are. And then JCS will tell us how volunteers can, potentially how volunteers could help through some of the services that they offer. So that we can't do, but absolutely happy to help anybody looking to volunteer individually, as a family, or on behalf of a synagogue or a group.
And if somebody wants to help financially, they call Beth, correct?
We are about more than 80% of our funding actually comes straight from the Associated through the annual campaign and through grants and other things that they help to shepherd for us. So a gift to the Associated is a support to JVC, and we encourage everyone to make that generous gift.
Look, there are folks who, for whatever reason, they don't have the time or the interest in volunteering, but they certainly can help in that way. So that's actually, it's valuable as well.
Absolutely. I think through time and treasure, everybody has something to give. And so think about, for everybody, I would say, think about what you are most passionate about or a value you want to communicate to your children and get started today. But absolutely, there's something there for everybody.
Very good. Beth, other questions, or you want to wrap it up with your wrap up stuff?
Yeah, I just want to build on what you just said, Scott, about, and Ashley called it time and treasure. And I've always loved the expression philanthropy of time as well as the philanthropy of dollars. So everyone can make a difference. I think that's the most important thing. And I hope you've learned today that it makes a difference to you as much as it makes, you could be saving someone's life quite literally, and you could actually be saving your own. I frequently say that my job as chair of the board of the Associated this year has been the greatest gift I could have received during this pandemic time, because my days are filled with purpose as opposed to the people who are struggling to find some meaning. So here's a way for you to find that. And I think we might not have any more questions, Ashley, unless there's something else you want to add, anything we missed.
No, I think you guys hit on all the questions. I will just say that in addition to there being something for every interest, there is something for every age group. So from womb to tomb, we have volunteer opportunities for everybody, no matter what their age and abilities right now are. We will find the right fit.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here today and sharing all this information. And I want to remind our viewers, if you learned something today, and I'm sure you did, please make sure you tell your friends to tune in after the show. You can find us on YouTube or on Facebook, and everyone can be a part of this, so more volunteers and more volunteer opportunities continue to move our community forward. So again, if you're looking for something to do this fall, learn about the volunteer opportunities, go to jvcbaltimore.org. And also, this fall, I want to let you know about a brand new exhibit called Jews in Space at the Jewish Museum of Maryland. From science fiction to science fact, this new exhibit explores the wonders of space. And the museum is open. You need to make a reservation, so call and make your reservations today. And please join us next Tuesday, September 29th at noon for another great show. In the meantime, visit associated.org and jmoreliving.com for more information, stories, and resources. And don't forget to sign up for the weekly newsletter. And until we meet again, stay well.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.